Hello everybody, my name is Peter Petrov and today I'll be talking about Amended Tax Returns Form 1040X. This is for individual tax accounting class 250 and today's date is November 18th. Today I will go over the purpose of Form 1040X, the eligibility and limitations, the correct revisions to use, documentation and supporting materials we have to send to the IRS, and then how to fill out the form. If you have discovered an error in filing your returns, you might need to amend them. You have to correct Form 1040, 1040 SR, or 1040 NR. If you want to make certain elections after a deadline, if you want to change previously adjusted amounts by the IRS, if you want to make a claim for carryback due to a loss or an unused credit, or if you want to change your filing status. This is what it's used for. Generally, for a credit or refund, you must file Form 1040X within 3 years after the date you filed your original returns, or within 2 years after the date you paid the tax, whichever one's later. If you filed your original return early, let's say March 1st, your return is considered filed on the due date, which is usually April 15th. However, if you had an extension to file late, let's say October 15th, but you filed earlier and the IRS receives the tax on July 1st, then your return is considered filed on July 1st. And that's when the time starts ticking. The time limit for filing a claim for credit or refund on Form 10X can be suspended for certain people who are physically or mentally unable to manage their financial affairs. There are other exceptions to consider in regards to the limitations. If you are affected by a federally declared disaster, you may have additional time to file the claim on your amended return. If you are in a combat zone or sustained injuries or were hospitalized as a result of being in a combat zone, then your time may be automatically extended in this case. Form 1040X used to claim a credit or return based on bad debt or worthless security must be filed within 7 years after the due dates of the return for the tax year in which the debt or security became worthless. Foreign tax and credit deductions must usually be filed within 10 years from the due date for filing the return for the year in which the foreign income taxes were actually paid or accrued. There are several revisions of this form, and it's important to know which ones to use. So for Form 1040X, we have to use revision July 2021 to amend taxes from 2019 or later until there is a new revision issued, but at the moment there is not, so this is what we have to use. However, if you're amending a 2018 earlier tax return, then you have to use January 2020 revision of this form. The IRS needs to know why you are filing Form 1040X. This is actually included in the write-up on the form itself, which I will show you later in the presentation. But some of the examples that you may include is, for example, you received another W-2 after you filed your returns. You forgot to claim the child tax credit or a credit for other dependents. Let's say you change your filing status, or you're carrying a credit for earlier years, or you were claiming a tax benefit from recently enacted legislation. Those are just some examples. You also need to attach the documentation to support your amendment. Let's say here are some examples listed down. I won't go over all of them, but if you forgot to include a W-2 or you received it late, you attach W-2, which will support the differences that you're going to show in the form. The same goes for the other forms that you have to attach to 1040X so the IRS knows why that you're making this amendments correctly. Now we'll talk about how to fill out the form. The first part is fairly easy. You enter the names, the year that you're amending, social security numbers, addresses, that kind of information, and then you have to check the filing form status. So basically, it says on the form, even if you're not gonna amend the filing status, you have to check one of these boxes. So that's something very important. The second part is where you start to enter your numbers. As you can see, in A, we have the original amounts that you previously filed. And then in part C, you're gonna have the correct amounts that you must have filed back then. So basically, in the column B here, you're gonna enter the difference between these two columns. So we're gonna start with adjusted gross income. In this scenario, the person forgot to submit a second W-2. Therefore, his adjusted gross income was lower. So they had to correct it. So as you can see in here, it's a little bit higher. And then it shows the change. The itemized deduction is in line 2. Itemized deduction, you don't want to change that. It's always going to be the same. Sorry, itemized deduction or standard deduction. Then you subtract these, get the total in line 3. If you have any qualified business income deduction, you're going to enter it here. In this case, there was none. And then you get your taxable income. So this is the correct amount. This is what it was before. Then you have to figure out the total tax liability and the method used. So in this case, we use Schedule D. And there's non-refundable credits in 7. This case, it was none. So we subtracted. This is the total we get. There's other taxes, which was none. So basically, the total tax for the year that we should have paid was $97.78. Next, we have in line 12, the federal income tax that was withheld from us. As you can see, the total amount should have been $11,084. All these are going to be zeros. And then finally, total payments from line 17. As you can see, the total that we paid was $11,084. However, in the previous tax returns, we show that we paid $10,421, but the total tax should have been $59.86. Therefore, we got a refund of $4,435. Well, obviously, that was not correct, so we gotta make some adjustments here. So basically, if we follow the form, we're gonna subtract line 18 from 19. So we're gonna have 1184 minus 4435. That's how much we get. We get 6,649. So if line 11 part C is more than line 19, then we have to enter the difference. As we can see, it's more by 1,329. So this is the amount that we actually owe back to the IRS, because in the previous time we did our taxes, we actually got a refund that's more than we deserved. So we have to pay this back now. Then on the back of the form, or the second page, we have the information about the dependents. In this case, there was no dependents, but if you have to change the number of dependents, then obviously you're going to enter your amount here, find the difference, and then add that to the taxes. And then obviously you add your information here of your child or whoever it is. Lastly, we need to enter the explanation of why we're making the changes. So in this case, let's say we forgot the W-2, but there could be other cases mentioned earlier. So in conclusion, The amended tax return form 1040X is used to correct errors that you've made on previous tax returns and make certain elections. Usually you have up to 3 years from the original return or within 2 years of the date that you pay the taxes. However, there are some cases where there's an exception, like federally declared disasters, combat zones, bad debt, or foreign tax and deductions. We have to use revision July 2021 to amend taxes from 2019 and later, or we use revision January 2020 to amend taxes from 2018 or earlier. Lastly, the IRS needs to know why you're filing the form and provide us supporting forms. So you tell them, let's say, that you forgot the W-2 or you're changing filing status, and then obviously provide the appropriate documentation like W-2 or other forms that are required. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned more about the amended tax returns, and I hope you never have to use it. Thank you very much again.